I've got my jacket on. We're going to take this show on the road today. I am going to try to answer the question in this episode of why most aspiring traders do not find success. This is a pretty big topic. I think in some ways you could summarize it by working smarter, not harder, which is what most successful traders do, and what, of course, beginner and inexperienced traders might not be able to do. But there's a lot more to it than just that simple phrase. I think that what we've got going on here is an issue where, without making a choice, beginner traders end up taking the harder path of learning how to trade. Like anything else, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that trading is easy, because of course it's not. And I'm not going to tell you that my results of making over $12 million is typical, because those results are not typical. But when you're approaching anything that's hard to do, naturally, there's going to be different ways to approach it. And some of those ways to approach it will be more difficult than others. And I think this here is the sort of secret. Most beginner and intermediate traders, most aspiring traders, actually choose the hardest path possible for learning how to trade. But they don't do it as an actual choice. In fact, it's an absence of a choice. They just approach it the way they think it makes sense. But if 90% plus of people don't find success, then the logical way that most people think makes sense actually is dead wrong. So now what we have to do is we have to look at the few people who have found success, and we have to try to reverse engineer what have they figured out that's working so well, and what lessons can we draw from that? So I am here today to share with you the lessons that I think have been key to my success that I hope you can learn from. And I want to talk a little bit more about some of the common traits that I see among beginner traders that I think is a recipe for disaster, and I think almost predetermines them for failure. So whether you are a beginner trader, an intermediate trader, or even an advanced trader, this episode is going to break down some of the most important things that you should be thinking about in your journey. From beginner to getting to intermediate, and from intermediate to getting to advanced, and from advanced to simply excelling as a trader. And like I said, we're taking this show on the road, so buckle up. This is a big episode. We've got a lot of stuff that we're going to cover today. This is an episode I'm recording here in late winter in New England. So you can see we've got some snow on the ground. And this is not the snow that's usually associated with Wall Street, but I'm not really the type of guy that's probably usually associated with Wall Street either. I grew up in New England, and I'm going to give you a little of this backstory because I have always kind of approached things from this perspective of working smarter, not harder. And I'm actually I've got a little project going on right here. In this time of year is when the sap is running. And so I've got my wood pile there, and I've got my evaporator here, and these are buckets of sap that I collect from the maple trees, and I'm actually going to boil this down and make maple syrup, which I enjoy doing. It's kind of a backyard hobby. It's a fun thing to do. But let me give you this example of working smarter, not harder. Hold on, let me set up my camera and then I'll show you. So much like day trading, there's a lot of different ways that you can make maple syrup, and the way most people are going to approach it is actually going to make it more difficult. It's going to take a lot longer than it needs to take. So I'm going to give you this as a little bit of a case study, and I'm going to show you how it applies to trading. So with making maple syrup, I collect the sap from the tree, and the sap comes out at about 1.5 to 2% sugar content, which means if I collect 100 gallons of sap, that'll produce about 1.5 to 2 gallons of maple syrup. So over the last week or so, I've collected over 300 gallons of sap, which is great because I can make hopefully 5-6 gallons of syrup. But now I've got to boil and evaporate all of that water off to condense down to the sugar. And that's where this thing comes in. And so what a lot of people will do is they'll set up a pan over a fire and they'll cook and they'll just let it boil and boil and boil and boil. So a pan like this is going to evaporate at a rate of maybe 5 to 7 gallons an hour. And that's if I'm keeping it really loaded up and probably put a fan on it to really get it going. So realistically, maybe it's doing only 5 gallons an hour. So 5 gallons an hour of evaporation. So that means it's got to run for 10 hours just to get through 50 gallons. All right. So 10 hours is 50 gallons. 20 hours is 100 gallons. All right. So now I've got to go 60 hours of this thing running to get through 300 gallons. And here's the thing with collecting sap. It doesn't stay good for long. You have to boil it down really quickly. So if you get 300 gallons of sap in 3 days, well, 3 days is only 36 hours. I'm going to be way behind. And so I had to ask myself a question. What are the professionals doing? What are the people who are actually doing this for a living, who are actually making maple syrup and making money? What are they doing? Should I just get a bigger pan? Do I just need to build a bigger fire? That's not the answer. Let me show you what the answer is. The answer is reverse osmosis. Now, I wouldn't have guessed it either, but in fact, that's what the big maple syrup producers are using. And they can invest hundreds of thousands of dollars, even millions of dollars in this really fancy equipment to help them produce syrup more efficiently. So I looked up how much is a reverse osmosis system. They start at $5,000 and they go all the way up well over $100,000. Now I could have said, well, forget reverse osmosis. I'm not I'm not producing at the level, and so I'm just going to disregard it. That right there is a trait that will lead you to failure. Disregarding what a successful person in that space is doing just because they're bigger and you think you can't afford it or it doesn't apply to you. That's a mistake. So let's bring this back to trading. So with trading, as you probably know, right now I'm trading with a larger account. I have a 6-figure account. And so I could buy 10,000 shares of a stock, and if I make 12 cents, I'm up $1,200. And you might say, Ross, that's awesome, but I'm only trading with a $3,000 account. If I make 12 cents on 200 shares, I'm up $24. It's nothing. So for me to make 200 a day, I have to, with those 200 shares, get a full $1 a share out of the market. And that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to get $1 a share out of the market. And if you are approaching trading from that mentality, what you're doing is you're disregarding what the successful, profitable traders are doing. You're throwing it out the window. You're saying, oh, that doesn't apply to me because I have a small account. And that is exactly wrong. And that is going to lead you to failure. It's wrong. What you want to do, and this is, I believe this with 100% of my heart, what you want to do is you want to look at what those successful traders are doing and you want to try to replicate it on a smaller scale. And now I'm not trying to tell you to blindly follow me or anyone else. You should not do that, but you should learn the strategy and apply it on a micro scale. And that's exactly what I did here with reverse osmosis. I said, I can't buy a $5,000, $10,000 reverse osmosis system for this little small backyard hobby I've got, but I can take the concepts and I can apply them, and I can actually do this myself. And so what I've done is I've built a mini backyard homestead reverse osmosis system. And this system, what it does is it actually decreases my boiling time by about 75%, which is staggering. So from having to boil for 60 hours, right? Remember before I had to do 60 hours to get through those 300 gallons of sap. Now I can get through that same amount of sap in 15 hours, less than 20 for sure, 12, 15 hours. That is awesome. That saves me firewood. That saves me having to get up in the middle of the night to feed the fire. That's a win-win. And that's a lesson of learning what someone who's really successful is doing and applying it on a micro scale. You probably wouldn't have thought there'd be so many comparisons between making maple syrup and becoming a trader. Well, it doesn't stop there. Both the backyard hobby maple syrup producer and the aspiring trader need a period of proof of concept to figure out whether or not your micro scaled down version of what the professionals are doing actually works. So remember when I said that with 200 shares, oh, it's not worth it. I'm only making $24 on that same 12-cent trade. Okay, I understand that doesn't feel like a lot. And with my kind of backyard system here, you know, collecting 5-gallon buckets like this is a lot of work. This is a lot of manual labor to come and collect all these buckets. You know, what the big guys do is they have all of these trees all tied together and they all feed into one big common bucket that has, 500 gallons, and they pick that up and they bring that up. but this is proof of concept. I have to first figure out whether or not my RO system, my collection method, these trees, whether or not this system even works before going all in. Trading is the same way. You shouldn't go all in, putting a huge amount of money in an account, investing in all of the very best or most expensive tools before you get started. In fact, it's not the quality of the tool that makes, the furniture, it's the craftsman who does it. So only a poor quality craftsman blames his tools. So if you're out there saying, oh, Ross, you can afford better tools, tools are not really what changes the game. Yeah, of course, it's great to have better tools, and there's a spectrum of, better or worse or, excellent. But that's sort of aside from the point. The point here is, can you prove proof of concept? And so when we were talking about trading with 200 shares, right? I said 200 shares, 12-cent winner. Ross, that's only $24. That's not enough money for me to justify trading. No, I understand that it's not, but that is about proof of concept. That is about you doing what the successful traders are doing. On your scaled down version, I'm only producing a couple of gallons of syrup. On your scaled down version, maybe you're only producing $20 or $30 on that same trade. But it's about efficiency. And if that's the strategy that other traders are using to produce thousands of dollars, then it would be foolish for you to overlook it. And yet that is exactly what so many beginner traders do, and that is why they fail. Because essentially what they say is, oh, I'm not taking any profit on a trade unless it goes up $1 a share or $2 a share. And they're trading with tiny size. But then what they're trying to do is they're trying to predict huge moves in the underlying stock. Now, seasoned professional traders like myself, we recognize how hard that is. We realize that it's a lot easier to pick out small opportunities to capture 10, 15, 25, 30 cents a share. And to do that with larger size than even for us to trade with smaller size to try to get the full $2 a share out of the market. You don't see many of us doing that, and there's a reason. So why is it that so many of you guys as beginner or even intermediate traders are totally overlooking what a seasoned, successful trader is doing? This is where I think you're working harder, not smarter. You're making it so much harder on yourself. And you're saying, oh, well, I can't afford to only trade 2 hours a day. I need to spend, 6, 8 hours a day in front of the computer, because if there's, a $1 a share move, maybe it's going to take longer to form, or it's going to happen later in the day. So then this is another trait of a trader that's going to lose money and is going to fail. You're not doing what the successful traders are doing. You are over trading. You're putting way too much time in. And that doesn't pay off. Traders who lose money ultimately are losing money because they're not doing what profitable traders are doing. Right? I mean, I guess that goes without saying. If they were doing what profitable traders were doing, they'd be making money. So where's the disconnect? Well, I think the disconnect for some people is very big. They have no idea what profitable traders are doing. They're just shooting from the hip. And there's other people who maybe have a sense of what profitable traders are doing, but they think that that doesn't work for them. They're like, well, I'm working a 9 to 5, so I'm just going to try a day trade on my phone using like a Robinhood app. That's probably not going to work so well, right? How many 6-figure, 7-figure traders are doing that? Probably none. So you're trying to reinvent the wheel and do something that's kind of like not possible. Or maybe there's people out there who are saying, well, I know what the successful traders are doing. I know what Ross is doing. He's, taking 15-cent average winners, but I have a small account, so I'm just going to try to focus on getting, $1 a share out of every trade. Well, okay, if you're able to do that with 100 shares and then you can scale it up to 10,000, you're going to become, the next Warren Buffett. There's a reason that most successful traders aren't trying to do that. It's because it's extremely difficult. So again, you've created a gap between what successful traders are doing and what you're trying to do. So what I encourage you to do, if you've watched this much of this episode, clearly you're invested and you're very interested in this topic of why beginner traders lose money, why traders in general lose money. And I want to give you a chance to learn the strategy that I trade. So I put together a link down below that's going to give you a PDF of my small account strategy, a PDF of my micro pullback strategy. Those are the two strategies that I trade hand in hand. And I have some other resources I put in there, a technical analysis guide for beginner traders. There's a few other things. And I'm also going to give you a link I'll email you a link for a 2-week trial.
So you can actually watch over my shoulder for 2 weeks and see whether or not you like my strategy. Now, the fact is, there's a lot of traders. Now, this is different from maple syrup. With maple syrup, there's probably kind of like one way to really make it and to be super, super efficient about it, really. I mean, maybe there's 2 ways, but there's really just one way. With trading, there are certainly different strategies. And so you may find that you learn from me and you say, well, Ross, I don't really like your strategy. I'm going to learn from someone else. And that's fine. You could learn from whoever you want. Just make sure that you're learning from someone who's actually a profitable trader, because, red flag, there are people out there who claim to be profitable, but they don't actually make money trading. They only make money selling classes or doing YouTube videos or things like that. And unfortunately, that's the reality of this industry. There's a lot of people out there that are simply lying to you. So make sure whoever you're learning from is actually profitable. Otherwise, all of the time you spend on proof of concept, learning their strategy, may be completely a waste of time. All right, so that's a word of caution. But this is what I encourage you guys to do. Those of you who are interested in my strategy, download the links, or check out the links, download the PDFs, and start practicing the strategy that I trade. Do a period of proof of concept. See if you can achieve the metrics that justify trading that strategy with real money. And if you're not able to, try to figure out what's the disconnect. What am I doing differently from what Ross is doing? And the good news is, if you're part of the Warrior Trading community, you get the support along the way. You're not doing this on your own. So if you have questions and you're trying to figure out, well, there is a gap here and I'm trying to figure out what it is, you're going to get answers to those questions. Now, if you want to just download my PDF strategy and go through it on your own, you can do that too. And if it helps you in your trading, that's awesome. So this is a moment right now where you're kind of at a fork in the road. You know, the path that a lot of beginner traders are on, 9 out of 10, is for losing money. I would encourage you to take a brief detour off that path to learn a strategy that is proven profitable by someone else. Even if there's no guarantee it'll work for you, spend time learning that strategy. Out of that path, you may still end up not finding success. You may say, this isn't going to work for me. But you will at least have understood better what the gap is between why you're not successful and why someone else is. Maybe it's an aptitude issue. Maybe it is a time of day. Maybe it's because you are only able to trade on a mobile device. But maybe some of these can be overcome, and you won't know unless you try. So I encourage you to take the leap. And, this is the thing with trading. You have to be an optimist. You have to be optimistic. You have to be hopeful. It's just like a lot of things in life. There's certainly risk. My results aren't typical. Trading is risky, but people do it anyways because they're willing to take the risk. So if you're willing to take the risk, I encourage you to check out that link down below. And I would love to be your guide, your mentor, as you're going through your learning curve and going through your journey of learning how to day trade. All right, thanks for tuning in. I hope this has been a really interesting episode. And please, if you have any questions, comments, leave them down below. And I hope you hit the thumbs up, and I hope you're already subscribed to the channel.